I'm William Shatner. I've done a lot of things in my career, but this takes the cake. This is so cool. You, Joseph, today, it's all about you. You won the internet. Congratulations. It's exciting. It makes me want to celebrate. Makes me want to get up out of this chair. Makes me want to sing. Makes me want to dance. Makes me want to shout. Kick my heels up. Throw my hands up. Toss my head back. No, really, people should be shouting your name in the street.
Come on now. Sing that name.
Sing that song.
Joseph, sing.
Sing it out loud.
Joseph.
I want to celebrate. Put it up in lights.
The internet belongs to you.
See, no one else deserves to be celebrated like you because you are the best.
Joseph Jaffy is not famous. I'm kind of, but I'm Ross, you know. Jaffy is nothing more than a zombie extra, you know. Joseph Jaffy is not famous.
A spring in your step. There is a twinkle in your eye.
I can throw a rhyme down for you real quick. Yes, they call me Thrill. They say that I'm the man. You disagree, how could you? Let me make you understand.
Should we bring her on the show? And anybody find me? And there she is.
Fresh as some bread, pulled right from the oven. When you feel rejected, you get some of my loving.
Take on me.
She looks wonderful. Mom looks amazing.
Somebody to. Okay, more bugger off now. I've got to show it to you.
Like that?
Joseph Jaffy, ladies and gentlemen.
You just made the new intro of the show. You know, here I am trying to impress my brother from another mother, Mitch Joel, to think about how far I've come. You know, he was guest number 13 when the SH1T hit the fan. And then, of course, the show was called Corona TV. Now it's not. Now it's called Joseph Jaffy's Not Famous, because I have the very famous Mitch Joel on the show, the triumphant return of my brother from another mother. And so as much as I think that I've made a lot of progress, yesterday's show, somebody said, why did you make the intro an iMovie? So there you go. I mean, I was just thinking about it right now. How did you know I did it on iMovie? Because it's shit? I don't know. But it makes me smile. It still makes me smile knowing how far I've come and yet how far I have to travel. Bez is here. He said, good afternoon at Joseph Jaffy is Not Famous. Let's do this. And Mark Pittman is here. Gee, Mark, is this the 7th or 8th time today that we're connecting? You know what? It isn't. It can never be too many times. Mark, the very first official purchaser of an Alpha Collective Pass. You can swing by anytime, my friend. Well, there's a lot to cover on the show today. And as many of you know, if you hold, Mitch, that's called a cryptocurrency, a creator coin. If you hold the Jaffy coin and you hold 25 whole coin, you become an insider and you get a whole bunch of incredible goodies, including access to show notes, including 1-minute highlights, including free coin. There's the QR code right now. Thousands, and I mean thousands of people are getting free coin. Just don't try and bridge out if you live in the state of New York. Just kidding, just hold that coin. But seriously, let's go back to yesterday's incredible episode with Uptown Julie Brown. I really learned so much about networking and LinkedIn in general. I found out whether I'm a radish or a tomato. But I love those magical 5 words, the 5 words that are almost sure to counter what I call the black hole of marketing. You know, when that client or that prospect disappears, they get sucked into the void, the black hole, like they were wiped off the face of the earth, never to be seen from again. And those 5 magic words are, I've been thinking about you. I've been thinking about you. Got you on my mind. Shapow pow. But seriously, I'm going to try that from now on. Maybe Mitch will return my emails if I actually start saying, no, he's saying, nope, not after this intro. But I'm going to try it. It's better than the hope all is well. He's either sleeping or he's sucking his thumb. He's doing something in the background. But those 5 words, I really loved it. I also loved the fact that, she spoke about this idea of list yourself approach. It really doesn't take a lot to stand out. It doesn't take a lot to find at least one thing in common with someone else if you're prepared to do the work. And so for me, this was an absolute masterclass, and it always makes me happy to share these show notes now with insiders. Another thing that I'm really, really enjoying is Cafe, the Collective Cafe, coffee in the Collective Cafe. There is my Ember mug, keeping my Nespresso at the perfect temperature of 136 degrees. But every single Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m., discord.gg/Alpha Collective, we're hanging out and we're talking marketing and strategy and Web3. And we're building a book. We are building a book. This is an exciting venture. How do you know? Well, I'll tell you something, and maybe Mitch can testify to this as well. People say that writing a book is like birthing a child, because the moment that the book is actually published, you're like, I'm never, ever doing that again. There is a tremendous amount, seriously, not that I've birthed a child, but there is a tremendous amount of pain associated with writing a book. And yet somehow people write a second, a third, a fourth, a fifth, and now a sixth. How do I know when I'm ready to write a book? When I can feel inside that I'm about to explode. I can feel the words are inside me and the words have to come out. And so I decided to do something I think really, really innovative and maybe a little insane. We only announced the book. I'm looking at the date, July 25th, and the plan is to have this book in market, completely finished, crowdsourced, collective sourced, NFT sourced, Web3 sourced, blockchain sourced by September 12th when Alpha Collective launches. And the idea, the premise, is that every single person who contributes to this book will have an NFT that will give them the rights in perpetuity to royalties. So unlike many people that have written a book and used an NFT to market the book, this book is very different. This book will be funded, powered completely and exclusively through NFTs and through Web3. And likewise, like I was saying, if you contribute to this book, and it doesn't matter what your skills are, whether you are a writer, an editor, a designer, a smart contract coder, someone who can put up a website, someone who's a publicist, there is a place for you on this journey. If you want to know more, just come and hang out with us in the Collective Cafe, Monday through Friday, 8 to 9. It's pretty exciting. But I'll tell you what else is exciting. Some of our friends here, like Mr. Steve Garfield, he said, hello, Joseph, great show yesterday. Poking forward, not poking forward, plodding forward, plodding with purpose. That is the whole idea. It is called plodding with a purpose. But actually, he didn't even meant to say that. What he meant to say was looking forward to today, but it came forward as poking forward today. Listen, whatever you do on Facebook, brother, is up to you. You want to poke, you poke. And Mark is just reminding people 8 to 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. But let's get into our seated soliloquy. And today, the seated soliloquy, of course, connected to Mr. Mitch Joel, is called Thinkable. Now, Mitch is an innovator. This is not his introduction, but it is about thinking different. He's like, what? You are the Thinkable to my Captain Hook. The idea behind thinking different or differently is not so much sometimes in the thought, but how the thought is delivered, the container behind the thought. When Marshall McLuhan said the medium is the message, he might have been referring to Mitch's new project, ThinkersOne. I was thinking the other day about the power of thought and the power of monetizing that thought. I love the idea of pricing innovation. I love the idea of micropayments. I love the idea of thinking about new business models and revenue streams. And so when I think about this concept of Cameo for B2B, or I should say Cameo meets Masterclass for B2B, it just seems like this is, as Victor Hugo said, an idea whose time has come. But when I'm speaking to startups and guiding them and mentoring them, I always say most great startup ideas fill these two very simple steps. One, it's so easy, I could have thought of that. And two, damn it, why didn't I think of that? When we look back on the really great ideas, they seem so simple. In truth, they're anything but. They're not simple, but they appear simple because they are elegant, because their story can be told so simply. Cameo for B2B. Cameo meets Masterclass for B2B. I think right now that there are not enough thinkers out there that have the pedigree, the expertise, the credibility, the integrity to be able to deliver consistent thought leadership. When I was always thinking about how to call myself, I said I'm a thought leader. That was, I didn't come up with the term, but people would refer to me as a thought leader. And I love that term. A lot of people don't, but I do. I love the idea of being a leader in thought, which means I think a lot and I get paid to think. And some people even think that what I think is worth something. Some people even pay for it as well. So being a thought leader is one thing. Being paid to be a thought leader is another thing. Being a thought doer is another thing as well. As you can tell, I've thought about this a lot. So now it's time to bring on the man, the legend, the myth, who clearly in this photo was about 22 years old. Those youthful good looks before he donned all of the black and the black rim spectacles. But it's time to bring on my brother from another mother, Mitch Joel. Mitch is the co-founder of ThinkersOne, a platform that empowers companies with personalized and bite-sized thought leadership. See, bite-sized nuggets, I love it. From the best thinkers in the world and Joseph Jaffy. Why did you put that in the bio? His first book, 6 Pixels of Separation, named after his successful blog and podcast, is a business and marketing bestseller. His second book, Control Alt Delete, was named one of the best business books of 2013 by Amazon. And it's only because I did not release a book in 2013, because if I did, mine would have been the third best book. Let's welcome him back to the show, Mr. Mitch Joel. Welcome back.
Good morning, good evening, wherever you may be. Thanks.
And good night.
And good night. Good seeing you all. God bless.
George Costanza, end on a high. How's the internet at the moment, by the way?
It's maintaining. And again, I will apologize to everybody. We are having intermittent internet here. So if it does fail, Joe will do another monologue and then I'll try to bridge with my mobile and come right back.
Well, some people do intermittent fasting. I guess this is what's called intermittent hosting. So I will certainly do my best. Mitch, when you were on the show, I'm not really sure it could have been called a show, Corona TV. I don't even know if we were doing it on Zoom then. And I have come a long way, and yet I have a long way to go. But let me tell you, one of the things that I decided to do at the beginning is really research what would happen if we were brothers from another mother. And the best that I could come up with, Mitch, was this. Oh. So I don't know. I think I look like a hitman, and you've got some youthful good looks there.
I feel like, why are you using these pictures from like 20 years? Just go to my website. There's a lot of recent photos. It's like... What are you doing?
Well, this is a recent photo of me, though.
Yeah.
Mitch, tell me more.
I actually made a note to have my brain scanned, because as you were doing the intro, I was legitimately saying, have I been on this show before? No insult to you, and I'm not that busy. It's just I'm starting to believe I might have some short-term memory issues. We'll see.
Well, yes, it is. It's called getting old. First of all, you were on like right at the beginning. I did think about actually being able to go back and find that and dig it up from the archives. And then I figured I don't hate myself that much. I despise myself, but I don't hate myself that much. I certainly don't hate you that much. But there's a little bit more structure, and it's kept me sane as well. So welcome back to the show. Here's something else that wasn't on the show when you were around, something that we call fun facts. I am going to need, what was his name? Jeff Smith. Is he still around?
Yeah. Jeff and I still text each other. Jeff was a good friend that I met, I think, through the Canadian Marketing Association, and became a great client of my agency, Twist Image, and then Miram, TD Bank. We lasted longer than he did ultimately there, but Jeff is still a great human being. Love
so
Jeff
this was the Jeff Smith that did all these jingles.
No, now you're thinking about someone else.
No, I was
about
thinking
completely different.
I was like, wait a second, the guy who did, do you remember Rant of the Week and Winners and Losers in my old podcast? Short-term memory loss.
Yeah, no, I think you're right on the name, being the person that we both know from Toronto. I live in Montreal and you don't. And then the jingle person, I have no clue. I mean, how would I know who was doing jingles for you?
I don't know, because, maybe he did a jingle or two for you. But anyway, I'm going to have to you tell Mr. TD Jeff Smith if he'd like to do a jingle for Fun Facts, he's very welcome. So we sent our investigators into the field to find out a little bit about the real Mitch Joel. And this is what we came up with. Is this the
Google form I filled out, or is this something different?
Well, we found out about sexual preferences in the green room, but we won't go there. So we found out that Mitch Joel can name almost any member of an 80s hair band.
Hey, want me to prove with this one? Let me prove with this one. Left is JJ French. That's going to be, I think it's Marco Mendoza, then Dee Snider. This is Twisted Sister. And then I think that's Eddie Ojeda, maybe, something like that. I'm willing to say, like, if you put that out, I could be right.
And the last one is Mitch Joel.
Yeah, of course. No, actually, I think the last one may be the drummer who passed away, which would be crazy.
Well, that's why it's Mitch Joel now.
I'll be replacing him.
So let's actually play a little bit of a game using the Wheel of Names. It doesn't matter
the fact that KISS with as if it's an acronym. That's great. Go ahead. Yeah.
Keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah.
The first member was Joe. Watch it. I was hoping it would.
Let's see how it goes.
I was hoping it would be Hanoi Rocks.
Well, Hanoi Rocks would be, I mean, the real member we need to know in Hanoi Rocks would be Michael Monroe, who's the singer, who's still performing. And the other big part of Hanoi Rocks that people may not remember is the drummer's name was Razzle. Razzle was the passenger in a car driven by Vince Neil, the singer of Motley Crue. Vince Neil had a terrible car accident. Razzle actually passed away in it. It was a very crazy story in the mid-'80s. So there you go to just prove my point to you.
I think you've proved your point. I don't think we need to go any further. You win, Mitch.
Yeah, don't ask me who 5 of my tech leads were at Twist Image. I wouldn't be able to tell you. But this information, it's deep in there. It's stored in there, yeah.
Well, we also found out from you, which is very interesting, is that you collect comic books.
I do.
Now, what I love about this image is I actually got to see you maybe for the first time in not black. You actually look kind of good, I got to say. I like this.
A bit of hair coming out the side there. Yeah, I'm looking good. Yeah.
Well, don't
I'm holding a $2 million comic book. Life is great there. Yeah, for sure.
Don't look too. Is that Superman #1?
That'd be Action Comics #1, first appearance of Superman, and in a 9.0, you're looking at a multi-million-dollar book right there.
Wow. They should NFT it,
or just send me one as a thank you gift for appearing on the show.
All right, we can do that now, Mitch. The third little piece of tidbit, I should say, and don't worry, there are no more little bad retouched or Photoshop images. Thank God. Is that you said you can't stop watching YouTube videos of people hunting for Hot Wheels, and I got to admit, I was like. What am I doing with my life? Why do I not know what this is? And maybe I shouldn't know what it is. And I mean, yesterday, Julie Brown was talking about sourdough risers that she called Lucy. People have been spending way too much time indoors. So I did a little bit of research, and this is apparently a thing.
Yeah, it's legit.
So tell me about this.
Hot Wheels is owned by Mattel. And for those who may or may not know or care, the greatest competitor to Hot Wheels would be Matchbox. Matchbox is also owned by Mattel. So it's an interesting business model in general. It's also fascinating that if you'd walk into a Walmart today, a Hot Wheel is still about $1.97. It's probably the greatest and most affordable toy you can have. Now, why am I so fascinated with this? One is, yes, I have young kids, but they're not necessarily as interested in this as I am. It is, to me, it is a microcosm of everything I love about business, brand, storytelling, consumer empowerment, and on and on. You literally have these individuals who are hardcore into these products, and what they do is, Mattel is no dummy. They create many, many, many different types of Hot Wheels that they release in multiple cases throughout the year. Each case has a treasure hunt, which is unique to that case, sometimes not even. And then they have a super treasure hunt where they take one of the cars and change the paint job on it or something about it. And these influencers essentially are going around wherever they live into stores, flea markets, and beyond, spending hours in places like Target and Walmart and other stores. And it just really is, like I said, it's a great microcosm of all the things you and I have talked about since the web started, that just seeing the power of these people, how passionate they are. You see how stores often treat customers. You see how a brand is really playing against, not just for these collectors, but for the general mass population as well, the types of licensing they do. And it goes on and on. And I just really enjoy the entire ecosystem of the characters, of how interested they are, of their knowledge base. And, you know, do I think Hot Wheels and Mattel are doing enough, to really embrace them? You know, probably not always, but maybe that's part of the game, is keep them hunting. And these people literally go multiple times a day, shoot these videos, and I just think it's crazy. It's awesome.
I mean, in the brand world, we would call it legs. We would talk about extensions and longevity and extension to a degree. But really what it does come down to, I mean, you talk about microcosms, it comes down to 1,000 True Fans, it comes down to community, it comes down to
everything.
I mean,
all of the components, Web 2, Web 3, some of them have Patreons, some of them do exclusive chats. I mean, I could go on and on that, in fact, you know, I have a lot of stories that I use in my keynotes, and I'm building one out just based on this, because it is a major brand dealing with major retailers, dealing with individuals, and it really is a byproduct of the main push, right? The main push is still a grandmother who walks in and just wants to buy some cars for her kid, or a father or mother, or just even the kid themselves, having even affordable access to that type of quality toy. And there's so many parts that to me work so well. And as frustrating as it is for many of these collectors and hunters to have stores that have, you know, again, you see a lot of stores with barren shelves. So if I was the brand paying attention to that, would I want to know? Would I be talking to my team on the ground in that store saying, why are those shelves so barren? There's just every aspect that we've ever talked about is completely illustrated within these hunters and in these great brands. It's a great brand.
I can't help but think back to that famous story with Lego. Where someone was calling it Legos, and
bricks,
and they were referring to it as Legos, and Lego issued the cease and desist. This goes back to our early days, our join the conversation type of days, but it still amazes me how elusive it is for a brand to strike gold when it comes to that passion, and they still don't quite know how to harness it, how to incentivize it, how to activate it, how to recognize it, how to reward it. They still don't.
Sure. I mean, it's again, like when you talk, you know, one is, I think Lego has done a phenomenal job of really transforming. If you really look at their ecosystem around how they engage with fans, how they have people vote. I mean, there's this entirely new, for The Office, they have a new set that's really was voted on by the community. So, you know, Lego did a complete 180 and is brilliant with this stuff. And I would push back and say, in Mattel's case, they do a great job. They even have like a Legends tour that goes to places where they know they're busier with Hot Wheels. They have actual physical cars in the parking lot that some people have created, others are Hot Wheels, and they have people vote on which one they want to see turned into an actual Hot Wheel. You can pull your car up in front of a banner that looks like your car is actually in one of the blister packages.
Oh, I love that.
So they've done a lot of things, and they have their own creations. entire website where people pay, I think it's $10 to have access to a private community where they are very engaged with their people. So again, in these instances, I've been really impressed as, again, a full ecosystem, microcosm of what a brand can do. I can't imagine the weight behind it to make this work, because again, what are you talking about? You're talking about a dollar product. They're shipping them in boxes that have, 100 in there. It's not the type of product you would think would have this type of heavy lifting behind it, but it does. And then, I mean, we could spend hours just talking about the brand Hot Wheels and how traditional or archaic or old it might sound, and yet they've completely revitalized it for a new generation. I even saw recently that they're doing stuff with Forza. So instead of Forza racing, you can build Hot Wheel tracks and race them through. So again, tons of great examples of how really traditional brands that deal with traditional retailers have done a great job of being fully digital and engaged.
I think we're saying the same thing. No, I'm kidding. But to be clear, I wasn't actually referring to Mattel in this particular case. I was referring to brands in general. But
Yeah.
I love this. I love this case study. And the thing that I picked up, which is almost like it's a Medium article. It's potentially a book, but it's actually a massive best practice. It's something that I'm even going to bring into my teaching now at NYU, which is this is a dollar product.
Yeah.
That's what we have to take away. That's the key point here, is that it's almost like, for the Web3 people, it's almost like the equivalent of a free mint that basically says, give the product away for free. I mean, even look at mobile phones, what happened. It took a while for the US to get there, where the phone was given away for free, because the contract and the accessories and the service and the insurance and everything that came afterwards was almost as if not more valuable. But when we look at, remember that article, How to Brand Sand? It's like, if we can make it work for a commodity like water, right? If we can make it work for a dollar product, if we can make it for a luxury product, which is the easiest one, then we can make it work for anything.
Yeah, and again, when you think about even water, I think it's going to be a great conversation, because one might argue that it's becoming more and more scarce and more challenging. And then what becomes the value? Does water start traipsing into alcohol-like levels of scarcity? Go ask people on the West Coast and Phoenix and other areas how they feel about water as it being everywhere. I don't think many people feel that way anymore. And that's going to push some downward pressure on people who sell water for a living and especially bottling it in the environment. There's a million conversations there as well.
And of course, there's been a lot of work there in terms of where companies have really like Yeti and have certainly leaned into bottles and holders. So I love the conversation. I also have to say, just to put a final pin in it, that it was interesting during the time with various floods and hurricanes and national disasters, where companies, I mean, you can suspend cynicism at the door for a moment, but companies like AB InBev and Coca-Cola that certainly use a lot of water were then shipping water instead of beer or soda to people that really needed it.
I think it was Pampers or one of them was sending bathrooms, so that like in trailers, so that people had a place to have to go to a clean bathroom and not just have to deal with the chaos of where they were. We've talked about it a lot in the past, I know, and it also raises a lot of eyebrows too. It's a suspicion of, should they be marketing or PRing themselves based off of the tragedy of others? It's such a complex issue. I ultimately believe that if there is this sense of goodness and they're doing it out of the good of their heart and they get some free PR out of it, I'm okay with that. I know many people aren't. I would think that if we were going through a situation as extreme as, a hurricane or a flood, and somebody pulled up with a bunch of 18-wheelers that had clean bathrooms for people to use in fresh water, I'd say give them all the PR they want. Good for them. All it means is their competitors should probably be doing it too, would be my only comment.
Yeah, I totally agree. Going back to COVID for a second, what we saw were a lot of companies that were suspending late payments and creating these grace periods for not paying. And I remember delivering actually a webinar, and this is all going to be super relevant when we come back to when we talk about ThinkersOne, which is not just an established portfolio of thought leaders, but people that have their their chops, that have been doing this for long enough that they can go back and connect connect the dots. But one of the things that I just think is really, really important. I just want to actually, in fact, I want to get straight into it. I want to get straight into ThinkersOne, because there are challenges of our time. There are important questions that need to be asked, and there are important answers that need to be given. But the world has changed. Thinking needs to change. Keynotes have to change. In-person IRL events have to change. I am unbelievably bullish on what you've created. I have to tell you, I'm not just saying it. Like, who are you and what do you do? But you've gone out, and I remember when you pitched this to me, and pitching it as in, will you come aboard as a speaker? And I remember just being so angry with you because I was like, why the hell am I not building this with you? It's too damn good. So let's take a step back. Let me give you the conch, the microphone, to talk about the genesis. Why you decided to put yourself through pain again, because the classic sign of a serial entrepreneur is masochism. Why put yourself through the pain again, Mitch? Tell us about the spark and the inspiration behind ThinkersOne.
Yeah, I mean, I don't believe that I'm a serial entrepreneur. I think that might be an oxymoron. I think you're either an entrepreneur or you're not, ultimately. And the humble genesis of this idea, and it's still really humble because I could use some sales on this platform, is I get a lot of requests, as many of us do, to come and speak, to show up, to do things. Prior to the pandemic, it was happening quite often. And then during the pandemic, it really amplified. Questions like, hey, can you just hop on my weekly meeting and talk to my team? We've read your book, or I shared your book with the team, or I saw you speak somewhere. Somebody would say to me something like, I sent your book over to a friend. They really love it. Would you record a quick little video for them? Someone would say to me something like, I don't need you for 60 minutes and your full keynote fee. I've got, a couple grand. Could you shoot a quick video for my team? And the answer from me was fundamentally, I don't know what to do with this request. Am I charging them for it? Am I doing it as a favor, as a goodwill, as a biz dev? I'm not sure. And so I found myself saying yes, and then people wanting to pay me. And then you realize the process is really crazy. I have to create a contract, send it to them, do an invoice, and not that people are ill-intent and are not paying, but you're chasing always for receivables. We all are in every single business. And what it led myself and my business partner, Aubrey, to realize is that it's the same amount of work as the main products that we sell. And that led to this germ of the idea of, what if we could build it a different way? What if we could build it as an e-commerce platform where the person can just go in, fill out the form, slap in their credit card, and we get the order. And that's when we realized the idea is bigger than just use it for my own benefit, but maybe that is a greater business idea. And that was ThinkersOne. It's the ability for a company to go in, fill out, choose a product that they want. It could be a personalized greeting for an individual or team member. It could be a mini presentation piece of content based off of a topic that I know and I feel comfortable delivering, or it could be have me pop into one of your upcoming live meetings. We built the system worked, and then we started trying to populate it with great thinkers like yourself. I know you're being self-deprecating, but you were an important component of having you on there for sure. And essentially what it is from the business side is it's really a mid-tier product. It makes my content that is typically only accessible to people who can afford my keynote fees or my consulting fees or whatever I might be selling, my online course fees, to having a taste. And in doing that, what I believe we've done is we have democratized these thought leaders who can now be affordable for everyday meetings, lunch and learns, corporate get-togethers. Now, what does the pandemic do? The pandemic does amplify it, but I don't think it amplifies it significantly in the sense of these work great if you're all in a boardroom together. These work great if it's a hybrid. These work great if it's virtual only. So I don't think it's predicated on a world that's become more virtual. I just believe that more and more people now have the resources and capability to run meetings and events and get-togethers differently. So if I'm going to speak, I'm flying out to LA tonight to speak at a big event tomorrow. And my thought is, why have only 2 keynotes? Why not have the 2 keynotes, but buy a bunch of these think ideas, we call them, these personalized thought leadership videos. This way you can have so much more diversity in content and thought and run them in between, almost like interstitials or bumpers. And what a great reason if you make them exclusive to that event that you can have that. So the ideas keep coming, and we've just been really fortunate. I've spent my career building a great network. I always follow that Jeffrey Gitomer ism of, your network is your net worth. And showing it to people like you and seeing the reaction, I thought, am I crazy? Am I the only one who would really want to have this mid-tier product that is essentially a gravy business that can help smaller organizations, non-for-profits? And, here we are. I should have launched it in January, but it just took us a little bit longer.
It always takes a little bit longer. It's like my house that's being fixed at the moment.
Yeah,
it always takes a bit longer. Before I comment, walk people through the products. Think Reading, Think Idea, and Think Live. I'm obviously using my own page.
Sure.
You can see what I'm offering. You can see what I'm charging. And then I'll ask some follow-up questions.
Sure. So the Think Reading is really a personalized one-to-one video that Joe would create for anybody in your organization, yourself, a friend, anybody. Think of it as a virtual pep talk. So it's not just a, hey, how's it going? But you're going to personalize it in the form that you fill out prior to paying on your credit card. And hopefully Joe's going to deliver something really of value to an individual who needs it, who should be congratulated, who should be recognized and acknowledged. It can also be used as a way to, let's say Joe's speaking at your next event, to maybe buy multiple of these and have Joe personally invite your key VIPs to the event. So that's idea 1-to-1. The next one is the Think Idea. And what's happening here is, instead of buying time, which I think is fine for certain consultants, it doesn't work for me or my business model. What you're doing here is Joe is deciding the types of topics he would like to present in everyday meetings. And he's presented a whole bunch here that you can see. And again, you'll go in, fill out the form, who you are, what's the meeting about, what do you want to have be the big takeaway, et cetera, et cetera. Joe will get the order. He will record each topic individually as it comes in or as you order it. And then you'll be able to run this video in any type of meeting you might have. The last product is a little bit different, which is the Think Live, because what happens here is you fill out the personalization part, but then you put in 3 or 4 dates and times that work for you for your next meeting. Joe will then get those. He'll choose one. It'll come back. You'll be approved, and you'll send him a Zoom link or a Teams link or a StreamYard link, and he'll be there and pop in live and spend, about 10 minutes helping answer questions and AMA, hanging out and doing those things. So the idea is that it's hyper personalized, meaning he really is addressing you and your team and your need. And it's bite-sized in the sense of it is fractionalized thought leadership. So these videos are, we're saying 10 minutes-ish, because we don't want to compete with people who are doing 20-minute keynotes. We think those are extremely valuable, but that's not the business we're trying to do. And what makes this work is that obviously you're not really interacting with Joe. You're filling out the form, Joe gets the order, he can fulfill the order. What would make this untenable for Joe and not make it affordable or valuable is if he had to do the whole back and forth. So that's the work that we do to make it easy for everybody to do it. And those are the 3 products. So 1-to-1, a pre-recorded video that's personalized just for you, or have them go live.
Dude. The air horn. I was actually looking at the pricing earlier, and I was thinking, have I priced myself right? Should it be higher? Should it be lower? I think it's priced right, because, when I look at, because I see a couple of trends, maybe 3 trends. One is the world has definitely moved to some kind of a hybrid. It's not, I feel like I'm in a Mitch Joel keynote or a Greg Vadino, my 2 bald friends. It's about and, not or, right? It's not about old versus new. It's not about IRL versus virtual. It's about hybrid. But also our attention spans. There's no doubt that when you're going to events, the 1-hour keynote has become 45, has become 30, has become 20, has become 18. And I think the third point is, and I've certainly encountered this, even in putting a 1-minute highlight together, the shorter the actual piece of content, especially if someone's paying for it, and especially if it's produced and prepared, the harder it is to get absolutely right.
Sure.
It's much easier, as much as I love, and I worship, I respect Howard Stern, who is the master. He is the best interviewer in the world, second to Mitch Joel. Let's just say that. You can use that soundbite. Yeah, exactly. Hey now. The fact is that when you get shorter and more condensed, it becomes much tougher. So I looked at the pricing now and I'm like, I think I'm actually pretty comfortable with that pricing.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things that I would say. One is what makes the pricing unique is that it's a marketplace. So how I'm trying to explain it to thinkers and customers is think of me as eBay. And people like Joseph Jaffe are the sellers, and the products that they're showing you are the products that they sell. I don't define anything here. It's Joe's page. It's a blank slate. He can sell one of them. He could sell all three of them. He sets his pricing. He sets his content and his topics. It's all up to him. And I think that you need to decide, Joseph, based off of how your inbound leads work and your outbound and what you're doing to generate more business for your thought leadership business. You need to figure out what you want to do. Some people don't want to be that busy. Some people want to be busier. It's up to them. And the only thing I would push back on is not because my main product is professional keynote services. I just think having been in the music business as long as I had been, and some would argue I'm still back in it a little bit with my other podcast, there's a big difference between going to see a band play live and listening to their album or listening to their music. And I believe that it's exactly what you said. It's not an either or. Everything is with, not instead of, was my line back then.
That's the one.
It's just different moments. If I was at the event I'm going to attend to speak at tomorrow in Los Angeles, would I be extremely upset if suddenly Joseph Jaffe was talking about 8 minutes on whatever topic it is before the keynote speaker or in between a session, or I could catch it in my hotel room on the closed caption TV? Like, I think it would add value to it. So this is the part that I believe ThinkersOne hits on. It allows thinkers like me to have a gravy business, to not say to people no because you can't afford my consulting fees or my keynote fees. It allows companies that typically couldn't access those fees to now have really unique and personalized content from me. And that just feels like a win-win. And then at a bigger level, it allows us to really cross-sell and upsell. So imagine I am speaking at this event tomorrow, and a month before they had engaged me to do a Think Live. So for 10, 15 minutes, I'm speaking to all of their attendees about what's coming up in the next month at the event and why to get them excited. Or had they bought 10 of these Think Ideas, the Think Greetings rather, the personal greetings, and they had me invite personally their top 10 VIPs that they really need to be there. Or they would say, hey, we're going to finish this event tomorrow in Los Angeles, and everyone's going to go to the winds, right? Everyone's off back to work. But what if you bought 3 or 4 of those Think Ideas and you could follow up with here's another piece of unique content, and it's got continuity because I know what my keynote is, and they can supplement it with this other pieces of content. So I'm excited about, obviously it's my business with Aubrey and we love what we're doing, but when I think about it as a map of what does it satiate? One is it provides a real moment for a business to have a moment of surprise and delight. 2, in this, some people call it the great resignation. I would call it the great re-engagement. So what a great way to really engage people who are not working in the same way they used to work. And then 3rd, right now you're trying to figure out how to make every touch point more meaningful. And I really do believe that if your touch point has content on it that's actually relevant to the issues at hand, and I'm not belittling people who hire magicians or musicians to show up on their Zoom or do fun things, that's important too. But there is a business at hand, and you have a multiple of employees who have never walked into a physical office and know nothing about your culture. I was watching just the other week this whole Elon Musk, he must be fired from Tesla, and these employees are revolting. And my thought wasn't whose side am I on? My thought was, how many of these employees have ever sat in a room with him? How many of these employees were hired in the past 2 or 3 years, and their only interaction with him is his Twitter feed? Now, no, nobody should be leading a company via their Twitter feed. That's not what I'm saying. But perhaps their alignment to the culture is off because there is no real engagement happening beyond the fact that they're doing their work and showing up on Zoom. So when I think about what we're trying to do, ultimately, it's how do we empower our teams to be better, smarter, brighter, faster, and the individuals. And again, it's not altruistic. It is a business, but I really believe in this because the diversity of people on the platform in terms of topics, in terms of where they're from, who they are, their backgrounds, I believe provides everybody with a bit of a roadmap for how to think differently about how we engage people moving forward. Because I'm going to get on this plane tonight. It's not going to be pretty. I live in Montreal. I'm at like ground zero of terrible air travel. I'm going to travel really far, and I'm going to do my best on stage for an hour, and I'm going to come back and I'm going to look at those 2 nights and 2 full days and really say to myself, was it worth it? Yes, they paid my fee, so of course it's worth it. That's why I get on the plane. But was it really worth it in terms of everyone's time and everyone's energy? And so I think we have to look at time in a different way when we think about it as well. And, for me, hybrid also, I jokingly say that hybrid is, I don't know. We know what remote work is. We know what going to the office is, but what is hybrid? Well, hybrid is Wednesdays and Thursdays. Hybrid is project-based. I don't know what that necessarily means. And what I mean by that is, how do you take and move your actual business forward? So if Joe's an employee of mine and we're suddenly hybrid, I'm really thinking not just about is Joe doing his work and performing at the level of which he should be and we would expect him to be, but what am I actually doing to make Joe's career better and Joe more integrated into the culture? These are really challenging times. And again, I think this is just a small piece of it, but I think it could be a powerful piece of it.
I'm going to waive my fee, Mitch, in terms of charging you the go live with Joseph aspect, but I am going to give you some feedback. In all seriousness, this resonates really strongly with me, and I didn't see the tremendously strong internal marketing use case until just now. And you're so right. The ability to connect, the ability to access, I've always spoken about access and assets, the O of zero, the owned assets. There is no more powerful owned asset than access to the C-suite. And I was also thinking of that amazing line from Joe Pine from the Experience Economy, time well spent. Your time is limited on this earth. Your time is limited at a company. That time needs to be time well spent. And if you can actually invest smartly and surprise and delight, to your point, who knows, they just might stay with you a little bit longer because it's the stuff money can't buy. So that's great.
And it ties, like, what is your experience ultimately, and how does your experience lead to a better you and a better culture? And I really, based on the conversations I'm having with leaders, and I have a lot of them, they're struggling. They're struggling because they don't know, because they themselves have been hoisted into a leadership position of which they never thought they'd have to be dealing with. And they themselves are detached from their teams primarily as well. So people can say, oh, we're great at this, and that's amazing. But it's harder and harder to do. There's no doubt.
Look, what there also is no doubt is that you didn't really need to fill out a Google form because you and I could talk about anything, which is why my show notes, my prep looks like that. But there is a question that I do want to ask you based on this conversation.
Sure.
And I guess the setup for it is the quote. I always have a quote for my guests. I don't know if that quote was, if I used that when you were on the show the first time, but this is the quote: "The world as we have created it is a process of our thinking. It cannot be changed without changing our thinking." And this was, I think he is one of the ThinkersOne. Albert Einstein, is he one of the ThinkersOne? He is?
Yeah, when we get the hologram, virtual, augmented reality, virtual reality platform engine running, he will be one of them for sure. Yeah, you can get a personalized greeting from Albert for sure.
So this does come down to the Marshall McLuhan statement, this idea that do we actually think different? Is the process of how we think and how we deliver and how that thinking is consumed in this innovative marketplace wrapping, will that actually change? Will it evolve? If not the thinking itself and the thought, the actual bigger product. And I'll just give you the bridge to the question that I'm sure you have been asked, which is disintermediation, right? Are you putting the speakers bureaus out of business? Are you putting conferences out of business? A bit of a softball for you, but there is a there in terms of recognizing that this could very well be a more efficient and an effective marketplace for people like me to reach people like you watching this.
I don't think so. Right? And I say this as someone who's really embedded in this business.
I told you it was a layup.
Because, I mean, look, again, like let's use this event I'm going to speak at tomorrow afternoon. I'm flying out tonight. They have a lot of logistics here around just getting one person there, me, and that's not even the attendees and the hotel and all of the logistics there.
And the green M&Ms and that whole rider. And
But it's a lot. There's a lot of flights. There's a lot of car services. There's a lot of border stuff. There's a lot of back and forth. Also remember that this is their event and I'm the guest. And they have a message that they have. They need me to understand the message. I have to really customize that message for them. I'm not doing that. We're personalizing. And we're doing it in a shorter form, and it's for a different type of, I think it complements. And I keep going back to that because I really believe it's true. I don't think that this turns away someone's desire to go to a physical event, see people, hear great speakers, shoot some golf, hit the pool or the spa, maybe do some shopping or horseback riding, spend some time pressing the flesh and living an experience in our protein forms. I do not believe this has any conflict with that. What I do believe is that if there is an ability to think about events and speaking professionally in a greater way, there's probably a lot of additive components here. And that's why, by the way, we call them thinkers and not speakers, because the vast majority of thinkers on the platform actually aren't professional speakers at all. They're people who produce a lot of YouTube content. They're people who produce newsletters. They're academics. There's journalists. They're consultants. They're just experts that are called upon.
Talk show hosts.
Look, we saw this day one when the world shut down in February and March of 2020. All speakers went out and bought a ring light and a webcam and thought they reinvented the wheel.
Yeah.
People like you and I had been on YouTube and shooting videos or being a part of digital video communications forever. So for me to do my keynote on this is not what I was doing. I was creating a broadcast of content that would engage in this format, which is fundamentally different from what happens when I get up on stage. There might be similar stories, but I tell them in a completely different way and use a whole bunch of different technology to deliver that. So I learned really early on that these two beasts are two beasts unto themselves. And this business has more connection to monetization of video content than anything else. How can these thinkers who are great at newsletters, great at creating videos on YouTube, figure out a way to show up every day into people's meetings to really provide value to them that is personalized for them? That to me is the greater competitor than speaking events or the event industry. I really think for them, it's just extremely complementary.
I told you it was a softball and and a layup, and I actually see a couple of very interesting things happening. Well, one is you've seen even when I put my video together on the site, I used my show as the wrapping, as the border, quite literally and figuratively. And I think what's interesting is that we are seeing. I know one of the things that clearly you think about, and you need to think about this is, what is the near future of the speaking business and the event business looking like? And the answer is you're doing it. I'm doing it. I'm doing my keynotes as an episode of my show. If I show up to an IRL event, I'm going to say, hey, listen, would you like me to do a show live on the floor during your conference? Or how about I bring on some of the keynotes onto my show in advance to help you actually sell tickets to the show? So what we really are seeing, I think, back to Joe Pine, is the experientializing of speaking, that we're turning the one-off event, the ad hoc, the one-off, one and done, into truly an experience.
Yes. So the word I would use is the future of that business is dynamic. That the opportunity to think about how people congregate and the value we can create within that is going to truly dictate what the future of that industry looks like. So I don't believe it's about really integrating more video content. I think that's, one or two of the things that they should think about. When I'm thinking about the real future of the speaking or event business, I'm thinking more macro. So now I'm worrying about things like travel. Travel is so much more expensive right now, and that might be a bump in time or a permanent feature we'll see as the world evolves. Inflation, the economy, supply chain issues, employment issues, COVID, and other issues around that. I was at an event. Every event I've gone to or spoken at recently has sent an email after saying that they were some kind of super spreader. So we also just can't dismiss what's going on with COVID, in that I can't get on a plane if I'm not feeling well enough to present or attend. Right? If I do catch COVID, I then can't work for 3 or 4 days after. My employer has to know. It's really expensive. At what point are the CFO and CEO going to look at the expense of running an event or sending people to an event and go, why are we doing this? They just spent 2 extra nights in a hotel because flights got delayed or canceled, or someone got sick. Is there value if I'm going to go to an event and registration is significantly down because people missed flights, people got COVID, whatever it might be? Now, these are issues that we've always had, but right now it feels to me like they are very real. As someone who's out on the road, and I really keep them very, very separate. Like what I'm doing with ThinkersOne, I really don't feel has much of an impact on that other than adding more value to it. And I'm worried about the business because of the infrastructure and cost around it that is now being so hugely impacted at a macro level. Does that mean I'm having less demand for me as a speaker? It doesn't. But recession, people really looking at the receipts after and thinking about what it meant to get people together and what the value is. I say that because I think there's a lot of value, but I think it could also mean there wasn't a lot of value. It's going to be a very challenging next few years for this industry. And I empathize with it because it's my main source of income, and I want it to do well, and I want to be busier than ever and visiting great places and meeting incredible people. But I do feel that there's this downward pressure from these macroeconomic factors that, and we didn't even talk about a war in Ukraine, that just that might make it untenable.
When did that happen?
Yeah.
I've just been doing my show.
But I mean, look, here's my quick little story on this, because as you know, I could talk forever on this stuff. I was at an event a couple weeks ago in Las Vegas. Get off the plane. I got to get in a cab. It was a 12-minute cab ride to the hotel off strip. And that cab was $90 US, Canadian. And I look at the flights. I know many people in the US are looking at flights and they're saying, yeah, flights are crazy expensive. A executive class flight from here to Los Angeles for me, fully refundable and fully exchangeable, is close to $5,000 or $6,000 Canadian. That's a big leap from where we were. And I understand what's going on with price of fuel. I understand what's going on with these I get it. But at what point are people going to look at this and think this isn't tenable? We can't do it this way. Those are my fears. So the industry has to think about what the industry looks like in a world of virtual reality and augmented reality and the tools we can use to really create truly great experiences when we get gathered together. I think there's huge opportunities there. But these downward pressing macro factors are the ones that I feel people are ignoring because they're just so happy to not be wearing masks and locked in their homes.
Yeah, there are certainly bigger challenges, but I am heartened by the with, not instead of, and the fact that, you know what, you can always just pay $500 and get a think greeting from me. But, you know, Mitch, in all seriousness, I think the ability, I love strategically, I've always focused on a model that says pre, during, post. And events have really, for the most part, just been very, you know, the event itself, a little bit of pre, a little bit of post.
Yeah.
And the post has been, here's a copy of the, you know, here's the video or the deck.
Here's the thank you email.
Right. And the pre was just anything to put a bum in seats or to go ahead. And so what even in the case of COVID, even in the case of inclement weather, the ability now to get that little personal greeting or something that surprises and delights, you know, so much. I've been saying a lot in the Web3 space now that instead of under promising and over delivering, which is still better than over promising and under delivering, right, how about we just promise and deliver and then surprise and delight? So it's like a very simple, do what you say and then give them a little bit more, a little bit of surprise and delight. And I see this coming through super, super strongly. It is Wellness Wednesday and we are at the tail end of this, but Whitney Lauritsen is our correspondent on Wednesday, and we are just going to watch her vignette, and then we will wrap up. I never see these vignettes in advance, but they always somehow have something to do with the conversation. So, Whitney, take it away.
I just returned from a 7-day retreat in Costa Rica. This is one of the first retreats of its kind I've ever been to. Never something quite like it. And each day I tried to do some reflections and journaling. So for the next few episodes of Wellness Wednesday, I'm going to share with you some takeaways in case they may resonate with you too. After day 1 of the retreat, here's what I learned. Number 1 was to release the grip and release the effort. I learned this from a yoga class I was in that day. And along the same lines, I wrote that I wanted to let go and trust more. And lastly, to quote the teacher, to surrender to the sticky and embrace the mess. Now, the stickiness was because I was in Costa Rica and it was really hot. I was sweating and physically sticky. But sometimes when we can just let go and trust the process, even when it feels messy or sticky or uncomfortable, that's where we can learn the most. That's where we can grow the most. That's where we can discover new things about ourselves and really stretch ourselves to new limits. So I encourage you to take a moment to think about, how can you trust more? How can you release any grip? Can you let go and put less effort into things? We're taught that putting effort in is so important, but we don't always need to do it, especially in a yoga class, especially during a vacation, especially when we are trying to relax. Stay tuned for more lessons from the retreat.
I love that. And you need to let go. When she talks about squishy, I think of squiggly, something that you pioneered, the squiggly path as well. There is a lot of mess. There is a lot of chaos. Sometimes the most simple and powerful way to connect with someone is just to connect with them. And it does take me back to the early days of my career, when I used to read business books that influenced me, that changed my life, and think, I hope I get to meet them one day. I'll never probably meet them one day. And today, authors are so much more accessible. But just because they're on Twitter doesn't mean that you're going to have a real connection with them. However, through ThinkersOne, I think we have a really, really interesting, I know so many people here. It's amazing. I feel like it's a bunch of old friends. Mitch, as we say back in the old country, and by old country, I'm talking about Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia. Mazel tov to you, my friend. ThinkersOne is destined to moon, to take off. And you know what? Even if people don't book me, that's okay. My new pricing is $1 less than everyone else.
1 ETH. Yeah.
Yeah, what? 0.99 ETH, etc. Mitch, there are many new things about Joseph Jaffy's Not Famous, but one of them is that every episode ends with Chuck Norris being able to determine what he thinks of the guest. And in this case, what does Chuck Norris think about ThinkersOne? You can bank this one.
You are Chuck Norris approved.
And we will be back on Friday. Take care, everyone. Mitch, best of luck. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you for watching the show about hope, positivity, optimism, and if there's time left over, a little bit of marketing with your host, multiple author, and global keynote speaker, Joseph Jaffy. If you like the show, tell a friend or two. Please subscribe to the show. And if you want to get inside news, previews of upcoming guests, and much more, visit josephjaffe.com/subscribe to sign up for the show's newsletter.
And despite the best ministrations of your wife, you still look ugly.